What is going on, Notre Dame fans? Happy Friday. It's April 16th. I'm Mike Singer from blueandgold.com, and this is the weekly recruiting wrap. Make sure you're going over to blueandgold.com to check out all of the Notre Dame football, baseball, recruiting, everything over at blueandgold.com. Before we get into today's video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button on this video. If you're not subscribed to our blueandgold.com YouTube page, make sure you go ahead and do that as well. Guys, there is a lot going on in the world of Notre Dame football recruiting. We're going to cover a lot of topics today, but probably the most notable newsworthy item to come from this week was Milton, Georgia High School class of 2022 tight end Jack Nickel announcing his decommitment from Notre Dame. He was the Fighting Irish's second commit in this class when he announced his pledge to Notre Dame last July over the likes of LSU, Florida State, Oregon, many other schools that offered the 6'4", 230-pounder. As far as why Nickel decommitted from Notre Dame, look, I'll say this. He certainly was not dropped. He had a scholarship spot at Notre Dame, but this tight end class was starting to get really crowded. When Nickel committed to Notre Dame, he was going to be the only tight end for the Irish in the 2022 class. And then all of a sudden, Notre Dame offers Holden Staes, who had recently decommitted from Penn State, and Eli Raridon, who I've called a Notre Dame double legacy, with his grandfather coaching at Notre Dame as a strength coach in the late 80s with Lou Holtz, and his father playing at Notre Dame in the early 2000s. So Jack Nickel decided to back off of his Notre Dame commitment, which again leaves Notre Dame with no tight end commits in this 2022 class, but I feel like that's going to change. Holden Staes, a four-star recruit, the number 14 tight end in the country, someone who is a fantastic Notre Dame profile fit from a great school in Atlanta, Westminster. He looks like Tommy Tremble on the field. Notre Dame is losing Tremble to the pros this year now, and it looks like they might have their Tremble of the future in Holden Staes. And then Eli Raridon, the 6'6", 220-pound frame. He looks really good on tape. He had a nice junior season, and someone who I just believe is going to continue to rise, not only in the recruiting rankings, but just his overall profile. Raridon is going to be visiting Notre Dame next weekend, the weekend of April 24th. He will be on Notre Dame's campus for a self-guided tour with his family. I have FutureCast picks in for both Holden Staes and Eli Raridon to land at Notre Dame. I think there's a pretty darn good chance that Staes and Raridon are going to be Notre Dame's tight end commits and eventual signees in this 2022 class. Both Staes and Raridon are going to take official visits to Notre Dame. And guys, when I said that this is a busy time in the world of Notre Dame football recruiting, it's only going to continue to heat up now that the NCAA announced on Thursday that the dead period would be lifting and the normal recruiting calendar would go back on June 1st. So that means official visits in June. Notre Dame's going to have some monstrous recruiting weekends, especially June 11th and June 18th. Raridon Staes will be at Notre Dame for the June 18th weekend. All details about that on blueandgold.com as these things continue to develop. This story up on the screen here, find this at blueandgold.com. In-person recruiting to resume June 1st. What it means for Notre Dame. Prospects are continuing to set up official visits for Notre Dame. Again, huge recruiting weekends in June. And that would include Georgia safety Jake Pope, someone who had been considering taking an official visit to Notre Dame for quite some time. He was on a Zoom call with the Irish staff on Thursday and locked in a June 11th official visit date. Safeties coach Chris O'Leary, defensive analyst Nick Lazinski, defensive coordinator Marcus Freeman leading this recruitment for Notre Dame. Jake Pope listed as a 3-star prospect. I would be stunned if that's where he ends up. He's a true athlete. He could play safety. He could play rover. He's actually a really good receiver as well. I saw him play last fall in a playoff game, and he looked great on that side of the ball as well. Notre Dame is battling some heavy hitters for Jake Pope, though. Alabama, Ohio State, North Carolina, Michigan, Oklahoma, Georgia, the in-state school. So Notre Dame has plenty of competition for Jake Pope, but they will get him on campus for an official visit the weekend of June 11th. On February 5th, Michigan landed a 4-star recruit in its 2022 class. But about 6 weeks later, he decommitted from the Wolverines, and Notre Dame had actually offered a few days before his Michigan commitment. And then once he decommitted, receivers coach Del Alexander from Notre Dame got right into contact with Groves. He was actually committed to Michigan as a safety. Notre Dame sees his talents translating more on the offensive side of the ball. Rivals has him listed as a 4-star receiver and the number 46 player at his position in the country. This week, Groves had a Zoom call with Dale Alexander, and it's certainly possible that Groves is going to take an official visit to Notre Dame in June as well. So this is a prospect to keep an eye on, guys. If Notre Dame continues to push here, I could see Groves ending up in Notre Dame's class. On Thursday, Notre Dame offensive tackle commit Ty Chan tweeted out that he has committed to the Under Armour All-America game. Chan is the nation's number 209 overall player in this 2022 class, number 30 offensive tackle, number 2 player in his home state of Massachusetts, and he committed to Notre Dame last December. From what I'm told, he is rock solid with his Notre Dame commitment, and now he is pledged to play in the Under Armour All-America game. And when you look at Notre Dame's commitment list, you have a lot of All-Americans already. Tyson Ford, Joey Tenona with the Adidas All-American game. I believe Jadarian Price is an Under Armour All-American as well, even though I can't confirm that right now. And just continue to see more Notre Dame commits invited to these All-American games. Under Armour, Polynesian Bowl, Adidas. So really good stuff here, and congratulations to Ty Chan. That is going to do it for this week's recruiting wrap. Really appreciate you guys sticking around to the end of this video. Make sure you go ahead and hit the thumbs up button on this video if you have not. Go to blueandgold.com for all of your Notre Dame football and recruiting coverage, and lock in right here to our blueandgold.com YouTube page.